Every single year, in the quiet, isolated stretches of our world's vast oceans, 1,500 American heroes make their final, silent journey into the deep blue. Picture this dramatic scene unfolding far from civilization. A heavy casket, perfectly draped in the vibrant colors of the stars and stripes sliding smoothly beneath the crashing waves. It plunges a minimum of 600 feet down, at least 3 miles away from any shore, vanishing forever into the absolute abyss. Above the surface, the sharp, unmistakable crack of a Navy firing squad echoes 3 times across the endless water. A lone bugler plays taps, the haunting melody drifting into the wind. And then, something incredibly remarkable happens that most people have absolutely no idea about. The commanding officer of that massive warship retreats to his private quarters, takes out a pen, and handwrites a deeply personal letter to the grieving family back home, providing the exact pinpoint GPS coordinates where their loved one now rests forever. This is not just a standard military burial. This is one of America's most sacred, highly coordinated, and breathtaking military traditions, and it is happening right now on active warships across our oceans. The modern process of burial at sea is so wildly detailed, so incredibly meaningful, and so steeped in ancient mariner history that what happens next will absolutely surprise you. To me, it genuinely feels like we are losing touch with profound traditions like these in our fast-paced digital world. Taking the time to explore this ancient ritual connects us directly to every fearless sailor who ever navigated the 7 seas. When a Navy veteran or an active service member chooses burial at sea, they are not just picking a resting place, they are joining an exclusive, eternal brotherhood. Only those who served our country with honor are granted this spectacular final tribute. The entire sweeping process begins with a single, highly emotional phone call that sets a massive chain of events into motion. I have to say, if you are as proud as I am of our Navy veterans who choose this final, ultimate honor, do me a favor and type proud down in the comments right now to show your support. The grieving family contacts the Navy Mortuary Affairs Office and here's a detail that genuinely warms my heart. This phone line stays open every single day, all day long around the clock. Because when families are facing the absolute darkest moments of their lives and need this service, the United States Navy simply does not make them wait. Within days of that initial call, the family receives a special, incredibly detailed packet containing everything they need to know about the final voyage of their loved one. But here is the massive twist that makes this entirely different from any traditional military funeral you have ever seen on land. The timing of this ceremony depends completely on when active Navy ships are heading out to sea on real operational deployments. Because these ceremonies occur during active missions on working warships, the families cannot attend. I will admit, when I first heard that, it sounded a little harsh. You cannot be there to say goodbye. But once you understand the deeper reason behind it, it actually shows how profoundly the military cares. You see, for that fleeting moment out on the open ocean, the ship's entire crew steps up to become the surrogate family, every single sailor on board. From the lowest-ranking recruit to the highest officer, treats this service like they are honoring their very own flesh and blood. The commanding officer personally oversees every microscopic detail, and the crew will practice and prepare for rough days just to make absolute sure that the final send-off is nothing short of flawless. The meticulous preparation process alone reveals just how staggeringly serious the Navy takes this immense responsibility. For cremated remains, which actually make up the vast majority of those 1,500 annual burials, families are completely forbidden from using traditional urns. They must use specific, biodegradable containers. Why? Because stringent new environmental laws ban plastic containers, and the Navy flat out refuses to pollute the magnificent oceans that they have sworn to protect. Honestly, I think it is an incredibly beautiful concept that even in death, these heroes are still fiercely defending the environment they once sailed. Now, for full casket burials, which happen about 15 times per year, the requirements are so specific they sound like something out of a naval engineering manual. The casket cannot just be a regular wooden box. It requires exactly 20 holes to be drilled directly into it. And these are not just random holes thrown in anywhere. Military regulations demand 8 holes on the top, 8 on the bottom, 2 on the head end, and 2 on the foot end. This precise ventilation ensures that the casket will flood instantly, sink rapidly, and stay down permanently on the ocean floor where it belongs. Furthermore, the entire casket must weigh a minimum of 300 pounds total. To reach this required weight, preparation teams add heavy sand or solid concrete into the casket. You might wonder why they do not just use lead weights, which would be much easier. Lead is strictly banned because of the devastating harm it causes to delicate marine life. Again, this brilliant attention to detail proves that the military's respect for the sea is absolute. But wait until you hear about the ceremony itself, because this is where centuries of ancient naval tradition come roaring vividly to life. The whole solemn process kicks off when the multi-ton warship reaches the exact right geographic location. We are talking at least 3 miles away from any coastline, hovering over a staggering 600 feet of dark ocean water. In some specific areas, like the warm waters off the coast of Florida, regulations actually demand 1,800 feet of depth. Suddenly, the massive engines of the warship grind to a complete halt. The ship sits dead in the water. Every flag on the vessel drops to half-staff. Then, the officer of the deck makes an announcement that echoes through the loudspeakers into every single hallway, cafeteria, and sleeping compartment. All hands bury the dead. The atmosphere on the ship shifts instantly. Every single sailor who is not on critical, essential duty drops what they are doing and gathers on its weather deck. They are dressed impeccably in their absolute best uniforms. The officers solemnly place black mourning bands around their left arms. Here is something a lot of people do not realize about military funerals. The ceremony is split into 2 completely different parts that weave together in perfect harmony. The religious portion always comes first. A Navy chaplain steps forward to the podium, reading scripture and leading the assembled crew in prayer. If the ship does not happen to have a chaplain on board, the commanding officer takes on this heavy burden himself. Hundreds of sailors stand rigidly at parade rest, the ocean wind whipping past them, their heads bowed low during the prayers. To me, this profound moment of silence, surrounded by nothing but open ocean, shows a level of deep respect that crosses all boundaries of faith and personal beliefs. Then, the atmosphere sharpens as the military portion of the ceremony begins. This is where the absolute precision, discipline, and honor of the United States Navy really shine through. 7 sailors step forward, moving in perfect unison to form the firing party led by a stern chief petty officer. The elite honor guard carefully positions the weighted casket on a specially designed tilting board right at the edge of the ship. A pristine American flag covers the casket perfectly. In strict accordance with military regulations, the blue Union section, featuring the stars, sits exactly at the head, draped over the left shoulder of the deceased. The moment of committal is absolutely heartbreakingly solemn. The sharp command rings out over the roar of the ocean. Firing party, present arms. Instantly, every single sailor on the deck snaps to a rigid attention, throwing up a crisp hand salute. The chaplain or the commanding officer reads the final committal prayer. At the exact right syllable of the final words, the casket bearers gently tilt the wooden board. The heavy casket slides smoothly from underneath the American flag, leaving the flag securely in the hands of the honor guard, and plunges beautifully into the churning ocean below. The flag never touches the water. That exact flag stays with the crew, heavily guarded, and will eventually make its way home to the grieving family, along with a personal letter. As the casket disappears into the blue, the firing party raises their rifles and fires 3 explosive volleys into the sky. The deafening sound carries across the open water like a thunderstorm. Then the absolute silence returns, broken only by a single bugler stepping forward. This is not some cheap audio recording played over a speaker. This is a real, breathing sailor, raising a brass instrument to their lips and playing taps, arguably the most beautiful and profoundly sad piece of music in military history. I do not care how tough you think you are. Imagining that lonely, haunting melody drifting out across the endless sea is enough to give anyone goosebumps. For those heroes who chose cremation, The process is equally respectful, though slightly different in execution. The biodegradable urn sits on a small, dignified table covered with fresh, vibrant flowers. When the pivotal moment arrives, a high-ranking officer carefully steps forward and opens the urn. The ashes are gracefully scattered out into the ocean wind, catching the sea breeze before settling onto the waves. If the family requests it, the empty urn itself can also be respectfully committed to the deep. Before we dive into what happens after the ceremony, which is honestly the most touching part of this entire story, I want to take a quick second to ask you to please like this video and hit that subscribe button. The crazy reality of YouTube is that most viewers watch these mini documentaries without ever subscribing, but your direct support is the only thing that allows us to keep bringing you these incredible, untold stories. Did you hit that subscribe button? Awesome. Now let us get back to the sea. Here is the part of the story that truly proves the Navy's unshakable dedication to its families. Within 10 days after the sea goes quiet and the ceremony ends, something deeply special happens back on dry land. The commanding officer of that warship sits down in his office and handwrites a personal letter to the family of the fallen. I want to emphasize this. It is not an automated form letter. It is not a computer-generated sympathy card pumped out by a public relations department. It is a deeply personal, human letter describing exactly what the weather was like, how the crew reacted, and how beautifully the ceremony went. Most importantly, this letter includes the precise date, the exact time, and the definitive latitude and longitude coordinates where their loved one now rests. Many families take these specific coordinates, have them beautifully framed, and hang them in their living rooms. On anniversaries, they can look at those numbers and know exactly where their hero is sleeping. This package also arrives with high-quality photographs or high-definition video of the actual ceremony. I cannot even begin to imagine the intense wave of comfort a family feels when they open that package. Seeing their father, mother, or grandparent honored by hundreds of sailors standing at attention brings a type of closure that plain words simply cannot describe. And of course, the perfectly folded American flag that covered the casket comes home in that very same box. But incredibly, the Navy actually goes even further. They provide the family with a detailed, professional nautical chart showing the exact oceanic location of the burial. Because of this, some incredibly dedicated families will actually hire private boats years later to sail out to these exact coordinates on special occasions. Out there in the middle of nowhere, guided by modern GPS, they drop their own flowers into the water and hold their own private, intimate memorial services. Handling all these requests is a massive logistical undertaking. 5 major Navy ports handle all the burial at sea requests for the entire country: Norfolk in Virginia, Jacksonville in Florida, San Diego in California, Bremerton in Washington, and Honolulu in Hawaii. Each of these massive ports has dedicated, deeply compassionate coordinators who treat every single family with complete respect and delicate care. Now, because of the complex logistics of matching remains to deploying warships, the waiting time for a burial at sea averages roughly 12 to 18 months. At first glance, a year and a half might seem like an agonizingly long time to wait for a funeral. But here is why that wait actually proves how much the Navy cares, and that is, they absolutely will not rush this sacred duty just to check a box or meet an arbitrary schedule. They wait for the perfect ship, heading to the perfect location under the exact right conditions. Every detail must be completely flawless because they know they only get one single chance to honor this veteran properly. Recent operational changes have made this legendary process even better. Strict environmental protection laws now mandate the use of biodegradable materials across the board. This means that these sacred ocean burial sites stay clean, unpolluted, and totally beautiful forever. The Navy adapted to these green regulations quickly because, frankly, protecting the world's oceans fits perfectly hand in hand with their core military values. Technology has dramatically improved the family's experience back home, too. Better digital cameras now capture every angle of the ceremony. Advanced GPS satellite systems record the exact coordinates down to the foot. Digital files preserve the entire event permanently, allowing families to easily share these profound moments with grandchildren and great-grandchildren who were not even born when the sailor passed away. But despite all these modern technological upgrades, some things remain completely untouched by time. The honor, the sheer respect, and the unbreakable brotherhood that every single Navy crew displays during these ceremonies are timeless. Think about the active duty sailors standing on that deck. Many of them are just 18 or 19 years old, barely out of high school, yet they fully understand that they are participating in something monumentally sacred. They will stand at rigid attention for extended periods in brutal heat or freezing winds. They practice the solemn ceremony over and over until every single movement is poetic and perfect. The statistics behind this tradition tell a truly amazing story. In 2023 alone, the United States Navy proudly performed 806 burials at sea. If you do the math, that is more than 2 sacred ceremonies happening somewhere on the world's oceans every single day. And every single one of those 806 heroes received the exact same level of meticulous care, military precision, and deep respect as if they were the commanding officer's own family member. These massive numbers represent real, grieving families who are actively finding deep comfort in this beautiful tradition. Veterans who served in wars decades ago are still choosing this final honor. Even more incredibly, their children and grandchildren often end up following the exact same path. This unique tradition is physically connecting generations of naval service. Fathers, sons, and sometimes even grandfathers literally end up sharing the exact same final resting place in the deep ocean, thousands of miles from land.